Hey guys, it's Wednesday, October 19th, 8:55 a.m. This is not live. I'm just going to upload this. And I was this is my car talk for the day. I've been liking those car talks, the little motivational 5-minute car talks, except it is freezing outside. It is 40 degrees and I'm not sitting in my car because I'm not used to 40 degrees. Okay, so this is the car talk. Enjoy. So anyway, yesterday I talked about having to pay the cost to get into heaven. Right, every dream requires something. It requires sacrifice. But I said something in that video that I need to clarify and capitalize on today, which is I had said nobody can pay the cost for you because it's your dream. And that needs some clarification because I don't want to mislead anyone. That's not entirely accurate. We all need to pay the cost to get into heaven. And what do I mean by that? I mean, Jesus ultimately paid the cost, right? But he opened up the way with his blood. We have to take his blood and administer it to our lives. We have to apply it. Excuse me, and we have to walk the way that he has pointed out. You know, he kicked open the door, but we have to walk through it. Okay, that's what I mean. And we can help others pay the cost, but ultimately they have to pay the cost because here's the thing. Jesus gives a parable about purgatory, right? He says it's better to settle your debts here on earth lest you be thrown into jail and unable to leave until you pay every single cent, right? I'm paraphrasing. And that's a parable for purgatory, meaning nobody gets into heaven with spiritual debt. So it has to either be paid here on earth, which is better according to Jesus, or it has to be paid in purgatory. Now, when we pray and offer sacrifices for people, things do happen. Just look at what our Blessed Mother told us in Fatima. She says, many souls fall into hell because there's nobody to pray and offer sacrifices for them. So we know for a fact our prayers and sacrifices do merit grace for other people. To the extent of that is debatable. We don't know. Now, I would imagine they still have a cost to pay anyway. We can merit the grace maybe for some conversion, help them pay their spiritual debt, but ultimately they're going to have to pay what they owe in one way or another. Okay, and so which brings me to my next point of the title of this video for today is God does not raise spoiled brats. Okay, so if you find yourself like I do, I'm not talking right now to people who come from good devout Catholic families that have never sinned, never done a mortal sin or something like that. This video is not for you. God bless you. You don't have the spiritual debt that I have, so I'm speaking right now from my own experience and to anybody out there who might have this experience. I have a ton of spiritual debt because I lived my life like a horrible sinner before my conversion. So I have to deal with that debt. That debt doesn't get wiped out because I converted. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, I am surrounded by people who also have a giant amount of spiritual debt, and they, for the most part, are not doing anything about it. So I can expect that every opportunity God sends my way is going to be an opportunity to pay off spiritual debt, either for myself or for those around me. Now, people are really scared about what's going on in the world and yada yada yada, but we have to understand it's a good thing. Okay, the nuclear war, I know this sounds insane, the wars, the fire falling from the sky, the economic collapse, the famines, all this stuff, we have to understand that after that the debt is going to be wiped out. So we are at a point right now where the debt is bigger than what we can pay. The interest on the debt is making it so we're never going to pay down the actual debt without dramatics. Even if, I guess, probably every Christian in the world decided they were going to fast, which isn't going to happen, and live the way they should be living, I still don't think we'd be able to pay it back. I think it's accumulated to the point where it's going to have to be wiped out with blood, and that's just the way it's going to be. So, which brings me to my point of God doesn't raise spoiled brats, right? So if you live a life with much debt, much spiritual debt, and you are surrounded by people with much spiritual debt, you can expect you can expect your life to be full of opportunities to suffer. And this is a good sign. This is a sign that God is close to you and God sees what you need, what needs to happen for you and your loved ones to get to heaven, to be reconciled to Him. And I'm going to use an example right now of this housing process that I'm going through because it's extraordinarily relevant. So here's my parable for the day. If you don't know the story, I made an offer on a house. That in and of itself was kind of like a miracle because it's a seller's market. Nothing was in my price range. Did a novena to St. Joseph. Was in mass earlier that morning. It was made clear to me that there's a specific property that I was supposed to be looking for, not a condo, needed to be a house, not in an HOA. Now that's almost impossible to find in my area, so I started looking like an hour away and things like this. Then I got the notion that maybe God didn't want me to be an hour from my parish. And so anyway, it was made known to me that there was a house that was about to be for sale, about to go on the market. Um and I was able to put an offer in on it before it went on the market, and it was in my price range and it met the requirements that I was being told about in mass. And there was some other things that went along with it, like the number 13, and even the outside of the house is, I was thinking about it, Blessed Mother blue and St. Joseph red. And so all this stuff, right? And so I put the offer in for like 15,000 less than what they were even asking, which was way under what it even appraised at. And I got it. And so people off the bat were like, wow, you're lucky. And I'm like, no, like, you don't understand. Like, God doesn't raise spoiled brats. Like, there will be a cost associated with this, right? Like, I'm not just going to waltz into this house. First of all, it needs to be completely renovated. So that's cost number one. Number two, before I could even, so the catch was it's an as is sale, right? Which means the seller, who is the representative of the estate, is out of state and doesn't want to deal with repairs. So in that case, it's usually ideal to have a cash buyer because loans, especially picky lenders like the VA loan, which I qualified for, also qualified for based on bought in blood. But anyway, that's another story. So the lenders are pickier, especially for like VA and FHA loans, things like that, things backed by the government or whatever. So they have higher standards. So not an ideal situation. So I knew right off the bat, like, if there's major repairs, this deal is done because I can't do them, I can't afford them, and that's just what it's going to have to be. So it turned out there was no major repairs, but there was a ton of little cheap repairs, not a lot of money. I'm in it for less than $1,000 still, but annoying repairs. So the appraiser comes, the lender comes back with required repairs, rotted windowsills. Okay, Roger. So we do that, my dad and I. Then we think we're all good, right? And then the pest inspector comes, and you'd think he would just check for termites. No. Old boy went and checked every spot of wood, apparently, outside of the house and came out with all this stuff, all this rotted wood on the house, all this rotted wood in the shed, all this stuff. So I'm like, oh man. So we got hammered on the pest inspection, right? So I'm like, man, but there's no termites, so that was good. And there are still minor repairs. So during this process of me, now picture me, I'm working on a house that I don't yet own, okay? So people are like, you're stupid. Like, you are the stupidest person alive. And I'm like, yeah, I know what it looks like. Like, I know it looks stupid. I know nobody does this. This is unheard of. It's not conventional. Blah, blah, blah. But you don't understand. Like, I don't play by the rules. Like, I have a different set of rules I have to play by. And so that's actually getting back to my point, how I knew that this deal was from God, because God would never hands me anything on a silver platter. That's never going to happen in my life because I got all this debt. So I'm going to have to work for everything. I understand this. So everything I do is a reparation, okay? So I'm like, if this went smoothly, I would run away. I would be very suspicious because that wouldn't be from God. If I was presented with a big, beautiful house and moved in 30 days, I would probably sell it because it's obviously from the devil, because that's the devil. That's not God. God doesn't raise spoiled brats. God makes you work for it. But in the working for it, he knows what's good for you. So yes, you have to pay this cost. All right, so getting back to my thing, sorry. So I'm doing all these repairs on a house that I don't yet own. People think I'm insane. I was starting to be like, yeah, maybe this is crazy. Like, I don't know, but I'm gonna go through with it anyway. But in that process, I am learning so much. Like, so God obviously wants me to know weird things like how to replace windows, how to do siding, like things I would have never, like if something was handed to me, I would have never had to learn. And I'm spending all this time with my dad now, which is pretty cool and all stuff. So, but in the process of paying the cost, God has made it known, at least with this housing situation, that He is right next to me. And so it's like things are going smoothly. Yes, there's repairs. Yes, I don't own the house. It's a risk, but He's right next to me. The repairs are going pretty smoothly. And it's like every time I'm in there working, and I need something, it's right there. It's strange. So, like, for example, I was doing the porch. And I'm like, man, I really need a scrub brush and a bucket. I forgot it. And I go inside and there's like nothing in the house. And I open up under the sink in the kitchen and there's literally a bucket with a scrub brush and some Dawn. And I'm like, sweet. So I didn't have to run out and get that. Then yesterday I'm staining in the shed and I got it all over my hands and I'm like, oh man, I forgot a rag. And I look down on the floor right next to me and there's a rag and I don't even know if that was there before. I guess maybe I overlooked it. I don't know. But again, it was like this overwhelming like, hey, I'm right here. Like, yep, this is what we got to do. Like, this is the life you live, but I'm going to help you through it. I'm going to give you what you need. I'm not going to leave you an orphan. I'm still your father in heaven. Which brings me to what the title of this is that God doesn't raise spoiled brats. And so if you're getting everything you want out of life and everything's presented to you nice and easy peasy, there's a couple things going on. One, it's from the devil, run. Two, maybe you're one of these people who doesn't have a lot of spiritual debt, and you're already a saint or something like that, and more power to you. I don't know anything about that, so I'm not going to speak to that. Um, but understand, like, when in my experience, if it's not from God, number one, like I said, it'll probably be easy. I don't know anything about that. Number two, he'll slam the door. Like when things are not from him in my life, that door gets slammed and I can't open it again. And I know, okay, it's time to walk away. So there's a process of discernment that goes on. But for the most part, when things are a little wonky, so to speak, it's God giving you an opportunity. To pay some costs, so thinking back to how this whole housing process started, right? Why I even had to buy the house to begin with, my AC kept breaking all summer long, break, break, break. And people were like, in my life, were like, why are you not throwing a fit and yelling at your landlords, all stuff? And I'm like, because you don't understand anything. Like, I looked forward to it. I'm like, okay, it's 100 degrees outside. I have no AC for days at a time. I'm offering this up in reparation. Like, here, like, I didn't even have to seek out the reparations. I didn't have to fast, nothing. I'm like, they're just falling on my lap. This is great. I just have to sit here and suffer. And I'm going to knock some spiritual debt off. Like, that's how I look at things. And so that led to my landlord saying, you can break your lease. We want to sell the house. And so that's what sparked this whole thing to begin with. And so, like, that's God, okay? God doesn't, it's not the easy road. It's crucifixion, but in that crucifixion and dying to yourself and having to pay the cost, you're not left an orphan. You're not left abandoned. He's closer to you then than he even is when things are going smoothly, if there is such a thing. So don't have a pity party. Sometimes I do have a pity party. I'm trying to get better about that. Look at everything that doesn't go your way as an opportunity to pay the cost. And that's a mindset we have to have going into what we're into right now. When there's no food, when communism takes over, when there's war, it's an opportunity to pay the cost. Because we have, just in general, humanity has a giant spiritual debt right now that God wants to wipe out. It's a positive thing. So, hope y'all have a great day. Joan of Arc Media out.